Back in profound Yin Castle, with the help of Jade Fairy, Xiao Yan had broken through to the Six Paths Monarch Spirit. After several battles, the Origin Monarch Qi in his body had solidified. After arriving in the capital of Chaos, he had fought many emperors, and had refined the Origin Monarch Qi to its limit. Now that he had entered the Spirit Source formation and the rich Origin Monarch Qi had entered his body, an indescribable feeling surged out from his mind. Xiao Yan took a deep breath and took out a fist-sized crystal. The crystal was glowing brightly, and it was filled with a huge amount of energy. He placed the Spirit Origin Stone in the groove. In an instant, the Spirit Origin Stone burst out with a dazzling light. In the next moment, the endless Origin Monarch Qis seemed to be attracted by it, and they gathered together and rushed into the Spirit Source array. Boom! Xiao Yan sat cross-legged, surrounded by thick Origin Monarch Qis. Within his body, the Origin Monarch Qis began to rotate violently according to the path of the burning spell. Xiao Yan's hands formed a seal, and all the pores on his body opened up, absorbing the endless amount of Origin Monarch Qis. The sound of the Origin chains colliding was heard, like the sound of metal colliding. Xuan looked at Xiao Yan, who was in the Spirit Source formation, and smiled foolishly. She said softly, "Sister Lin, do you feel that the energy contained within Mr. Xiao Yan's Origin Monarch Qi is much stronger than that of an ordinary monarch spirit?" Kai Lin frowned slightly. Her beautiful eyes stared at Xiao Yan for a long time before she gently nodded her head. From the Origin Monarch Qi that came from this guy's body, she indeed felt that something was different. This kind of imposing feeling is much stronger than some of the elders in the academy. I'm afraid that Mr. Xiao Yan has also gone through some things that we do not understand over the years. Xuan smiled sweetly. Xiao Yan's strength made her very excited. Kai Lin looked at Xiao Yan's back and felt that the blood qi in Xiao Yan's body was becoming more and more vigorous. The sound of the Origin chains colliding with each other could be heard, shaking her heart. Preparations have been made. This time, Xiao Yan's strength will be greatly enhanced. Kai Lin spoke softly and then looked at Xuan and said, "We will guard this place to prevent anyone from disturbing us. There are many people who are plotting against this heavenly peak. Furthermore, with the name of Xiao Yan's Saint Rank trial participant, I reckon that there will be a lot of people who will come looking for trouble." As she spoke, Kai Lin had already turned around and left. Xuan looked at the powerful Kai Lin and could not help but open her mouth and follow closely. Currently, Xiao Yan was at the critical moment of his strength advancement, and the most taboo thing to do was to be disturbed. Within the spiritual source formation, Xiao Yan's eyes were shut. He could clearly hear the conversation between Xuan and Kai Lin. Immediately, he smiled and threw all of his attention into his cultivation. The abundant Origin Monarch Qi within the spiritual source formation caused him to be greatly shocked. With such a powerful Origin Monarch Qi, his strength, which had stagnated for many days, would definitely increase greatly. Ji Yuan and Zhu Kun sat opposite each other on a large mountain peak within the inner academy. Their expressions were extremely solemn. "When I came here just now, I saw Bai Yangchao. This fellow has returned so quickly. I reckon that it has something to do with Xiao Yan," Ji Yuan said slowly with a solemn expression. Bai Yangchao was the most famous training maniac in the inner academy. Compared to quietly training in the spiritual source formation, he preferred to train himself in the wild through numerous battles. This time around, this fellow had hurried back in less than 5 days. There was definitely a problem. Zhu Kun nodded when he heard this. He felt a little headache as he said, "This Bai Yangchao is indeed an expert. He is ranked 5th in the Soaring Dragon ranking. I'm afraid that he is likely to be ranked 5th. The current Xiao Yan is no match for him." Ji Yuan nodded his head silently. Although Xiao Yan could defeat an ordinary emperor, Bai Yangchao had the same strength. In comparison, Bai Yangchao, who had already reached the emperor realm, was much stronger than the current Xiao Yan. "I heard that Bai Yangchao has some feelings for Xuan. She is really capable of making a cultivation maniac fall in love with her." Zhu Kun raised his head and looked at Ji Yuan. He could not help but smile. Ji Yuan's face was cold. Since the beginning, Xuan never took the initiative to talk to Bai Yangchao. As for that fellow, ever since we saw Xuan once when we entered the inner court, he had been constantly thinking about it. He even said that Xuan was his person in the entire inner court. If Xiao Yan knew about it, I'm afraid he would have crippled him. Zhu Kun couldn't help but grin when he heard Jiu Yuan's words. He nodded and said, "I believe you, but with Xiao Yan's current strength, defeating Bai Yangchao is a little difficult." After a pause, Zhu Kun said in a deep voice. "Moreover, he has thoughts about Xuan and Kai Lin. Other than Bai Yangchao, there are others." Jiu Yuan's face darkened when he heard that. Of course he knew about this matter. Now that the academy had put on such a show, it was obvious that they wanted to see Xiao Yan's strength. Furthermore, the academy has also revealed Xiao Yan's identity as a saint-ranked trial participant. This way, even if it's an expert who isn't interested in Xuan and Kai Lin, he probably won't be able to resist wanting to give it a try. Zhu Kun looked at Jiu Yuan and said in a heavy voice. "You mean?" Jiu Yuan's facial expression changed slightly, as if he had thought of something. "Yes, Mu Yue." Zhu Kun nodded slightly. There was actually a trace of fear in his tone. Boom! Following the eruption of his aura, Xiao Yan, who was within the spirit source formation, suddenly opened his eyes. Two crimson gold flames flashed across his eyes like shooting stars streaking across the dark night sky. Within his body, along with the sound of metal colliding, the seventh origin chains had already crossed over, mixing with the other 6 origin chains, forming a mysterious situation. 7 Monarch Spirit. Xiao Yan clenched his hands tightly as he felt the strength surging out of his body. He muttered to himself, "I feel like I can go up another level." After pondering for a moment, Xiao Yan's tightly knitted brows relaxed. He loosened his fists and formed seals with his 10 fingers. The origin monarch chi in his body started circulating once again in the path of the burning spell. In the outside world, a huge amount of origin monarch chi was being purified by the monarch flame and was continuously entering Xiao Yan's body, strengthening every part of his body. The sound of bones colliding continued to be emitted from within his body. All the cells in Xiao Yan's body were like hungry and thirsty as they swallowed the origin monarch chi that had entered his body. They used the latter's strength to crazily strengthen themselves. At the same time, the embryonic form of an origin chains began to slowly form within the origin monarch crystal. While Xiao Yan was cultivating, the aura at the foot of the mountain below Heavenly Peak was exceptionally heavy. "Xiao Xuan, move aside. He is the saint-ranked trial participant. If he doesn't come out by himself, will he let 2 women block him outside?" Opposite Xuan and Kai Lin, a young man with a firm expression spoke indifferently. The young man wore a worn-out shirt without a care. His skin was ancient-colored. His muscles bulged and he was extremely strong. In his deep eye sockets, there was a raging fury burning in his eyes. He saw that the woman he cared about was standing opposite of him for a man who had just arrived at the academy. That feeling was extremely furious. Xuan indifferently looked at the young man when she heard this. Her body did not move and her voice was cold and clear. "Mr. Xiao Yan is cultivating. Who dares to disturb him unless they step over Xuan corpse?" The decisiveness in her voice made even Bai Yangchao frown. Kai Lin took a step forward and stared at Bai Yangchao with her beautiful eyes. She snorted coldly and did not say anything. The qi in her body slowly erupted, announcing her determination. When Bai Yangchao saw this, the fury in the depths of his eyes became even more vigorous. Strands of jealousy suddenly surged into his heart and swallowed his rationality. "However, I believe that other than the violent Bai Yangchao, no one else on the soaring dragon ranking will make a move. All of them are thinking of defeating Xiao Yan in the inner courtyard competition in a month's time. Only then will they be able to strike the saint-ranked trial participant." On top of the mountain peak, Jiu Yuan looked at the location where Xiao Yan's heavenly peak was located. After pondering for a moment, he said in a soft voice. 1 inch hey, Bai Yangchao is being blocked by Xiao Xuan at the foot of the mountain. There were already many onlookers around the heavenly peak. Ever since they heard about the identity of Xiao Yan's saint-ranked trial participant, most of them had rushed over, wanting to witness the elegant appearance of the saint-ranked trial participant. After all, Mu Yuyang was an unreachable existence. They could only come to see Xiao Yan to ease the regret in their hearts. Everyone became excited when they saw that the 5th expert of the soaring dragon ranking was blocked by the twin pearls of the inner academy. Regardless of whether it was Bai Yangchao or Xiao Xuan Kai Lin and Kai Lin were both influential figures in the academy. It was unexpected that they would be able to meet these few people here. "Big Brother Yi, are you going?" Many young men were clustered around a handsome young man whose face was as cold as ice within the crowd. One of them respectfully looked at the latter and opened his mouth to inquire. The young man had no expression on his face. His eyes moved away from Bai Yangchao and looked at the heavenly peak not far away. The heavenly peak was surrounded by clouds and mist, and nothing could be seen clearly. Forget it. A moment later, the young man let out a soft sigh and said, "Even if we defeat him now, the elders will have sufficient excuses. 1 month later will be the inner courtyard competition. When the time comes, we will meet again." The young man didn't say anything after his voice faded. He just stared at the confrontation in the distance. When the others heard this, they didn't dare to speak anymore. They also turned their attention to Bai Yangchao and Kai Lin. Xuan and Kai Lin. The young man only withdrew his gaze when the group of subordinates no longer looked at him. He stealthily looked at a huge mountain in the distance. There, a green-clothed lady stood there calmly, her black hair reaching her waist. She was so beautiful that it couldn't be measured. Purple light flashed in her eyes. Through the layers of space, she looked here. As if she had sensed something, the girl's purple eyes suddenly met the young man's gaze. She smiled charmingly. "Yi, you really can't stand it either." The girl muttered to herself, then pursed her lips and smiled. Her purple eyes continued to look at the foot of the mountain. Compared to Yi, she was more interested in the saint-ranked trial participant. Mu Yue. The young man withdrew his gaze and did not say anything. As expected, this guy who ranked first in the soaring dragon ranking didn't have any intentions of attacking either. "Xuan, move aside. The two of you are no match for me." Although Bai Yangchao was extremely angry, he still gritted his teeth and said. He was being stared at by countless gazes from afar. Given his temperament, he naturally wouldn't care. However, he found it hard to accept that he was being blocked by Xuan. "We will only know if he is a match or not after we fight." Without waiting for Xuan to speak, Kai Lin only coldly opened her mouth and gently waved her delicate hand. The origin monarch chi had already whizzed and gathered in her hand, turning into a purple sharp sword. Bai Yangchao's sunken eyes stared intently at Xuan. When he saw the latter's expressionless face, the fury in his heart finally could not endure any longer. He suddenly took a step forward. The aura within his body was like a mountain splitting apart a rock. A wild roar was emitted and scattered the surrounding clouds and fog. An intense aura spread out, causing the expressions of the onlookers not far away to change. This fellow was much stronger than a few months ago. "Bai Yangchao, you dare to injure Xuan and Kai Lin? I will take your life." At this moment, a handsome young man wearing golden armor suddenly walked out from the crowd. The young man had a tall and straight figure. His black hair was like a waterfall and he had sharp edges. The most shocking thing was the scar at the corner of his eye. The scar spread from the corner of his eye and almost reached the corner of his mouth. He looked exceptionally ferocious. The captain of the punishment department, Lu Xiangyang. He actually came. It seems like he really cares about Xiao Xuan and Kai Lin. I heard that punishment department has 2 captains in total. The second and third ranked experts of the soaring dragon ranking are among them. This Lu Xiangyang is only ranked 3rd in the soaring dragon ranking, but he dares to be so tough on Bai Yangchao. The appearance of the young man in golden armor immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding people. In an instant, whispers broke out. The young man did not care about the discussions of the crowd. His eyes were still looking at Bai Yangchao provocatively. From time to time, he would look at Xuan and Kai Lin with adoration. "Lu Xiangyang, Elder Wu actually let you out." Bai Yangchao harumphed coldly when he saw the golden-armored young man. He looked at the golden-armored young man fearlessly. "You don't have to worry about that. Today, whoever dares to hurt Xuan and Kai Lin, I will make them pay a painful price." Lu Xiangyang crossed his arms in front of his chest, smiled coldly, and said in a domineering manner. Xuan and Kai Lin looked at each other. They could see the worry in each other's eyes. Lu Xiangyang's arrival seemed to be to fight Bai Yangchao, but in fact, it added more pressure to Xiao Yan. Facing the top 10 experts in the soaring dragon ranking, even the saint-ranked trial participant would find it difficult to deal with them. "Haha, this brother is right, but you don't have to worry about it. If anyone dares to hurt a hair of Xuan and Kai Lin, I will make them pay a terrible price." Bai Yangchao was just about to speak when a long roar suddenly sounded from the heavenly peak. In the next moment, Xiao Yan's loud laughter was transmitted into everyone's ears with the help of the Origin Monarch Qi. At the same time, Xiao Yan's body also slowly descended. 2 fire wings were flapping behind him, and flames curled around them. Xiao Yan landed in the middle of Xuan and Kai Lin in front of everyone's eyes. He did not care about the gazes of everyone. He extended his hand and wrapped it around the slim waist of the 2 girls and pulled them into his embrace. The 2 girls saw the fire wings on Xiao Yan's back. They were stunned when Xiao Yan forcefully pulled them into his embrace. The 2 girls were first shocked. After which, they blushed and remained motionless in Xiao Yan's embrace. Kai Lin also struggled for a moment before obediently burying her head into Xiao Yan's chest, just like a little girl. Boom! When they saw Xiao Yan's actions, it was as though a huge thunderbolt had struck the minds of the surrounding people. It exploded in their hearts as they stared with their mouths agape at the Inner Academy's twin pearls obediently lying on Xiao Yan's chest. This was the first time that everyone had seen such a shy appearance. When they saw this scene, regardless of whether it was Bai Yangchao, Lu Xiangyang, or even Yi Yi, whose face was as cold as ice, their expressions instantly became gloomy. A boundless fury erupted from their chests. Are you Xiao Yan? Bai Yangchao's expression was dark and cold. He looked at the girl he loved, who was snuggling against him like a little bird. In the arms of a man, his anger almost made him dizzy. Nonsense. Xiao Yan looked at Bai Yangchao indifferently. His eyes looked around without leaving any trace. From the eyes of many people, he could see the obvious anger. Xiao Yan sneered in his heart. He wanted to let these people know that what they were thinking was just a fantasy. Saint Rank Trial Participant. I have been hearing about your name for a long time. Bai Yangchao from the inner courtyard has come to learn from you. Bai Yangchao took a deep breath. The fury in his eyes surged wildly as he said coldly, the qi on his body suddenly turned and rushed towards Xiao Yan like a sharp sword. 3 sovereigns. Xiao Yan's expression was cold and only smiled lightly. He slowly let go of the hands around the waist of the 2 girls and whispered a few words into their ears. Xuan and Kai Lin, who originally had worried expressions, instantly revealed a happy expression. Then, they obediently stood behind Xiao Yan and looked at his back, their eyes filled with love. Xiao Yan took a step forward and his qi instantly soared into the sky. Although it was slightly weaker than Bai Yangchao's qi, the sharpness within was not the slightest bit weaker. I will stand here today. Anyone who refuses to accept my challenge, come and fight me. Xiao Yan's cold gaze swept across everyone. His cold voice filled everyone's ears. Xiao Yan's cold voice resounded across the entire scene. It exploded right next to everyone's ears like a clap of thunder. 8 Monarch Spirit Warriors. Bai Yangchao wasn't the only one who sensed Xiao Yan's aura. Lu Xiangyang and Yi Yi, who were in the crowd, frowned as well. This kind of strength was also a Saint Rank Trial participant? In the distance, Mu Yiyu's eyes couldn't help but light up when she saw Xiao Yan. When she sensed Xiao Yan's strength, her purple eyes couldn't help but be filled with disappointment. What? Only 8 Monarch Spirit? I heard that brother has reached the realm of 2 emperors. Mu Yiyu sighed regretfully. This Saint Rank Trial participant did not seem to be as powerful as she had imagined. Lu Xiangyang's expression was gloomy. He stared at Xiao Yan for a long time and finally held back his anger. Xiao Yan, even if you are a Saint Rank Trial participant, your current strength is still too weak. You are on a completely different level compared to Mu Yuyang. Bai Yangchao's face was expressionless and his qi was imposing. He looked at Xiao Yan with an indifferent expression. His body was filled with killing intent, causing some of the weaker people in the surroundings to tremble. Cut the crap. Xiao Yan's expression was cold. His eyes were filled with anger as he looked at Bai Yangchao. This guy was really arrogant. 8 Monarch Spirit, this was Xiao Yan's current realm. Being nourished by the Origin Monarch Qi in the Spirit Source formation could be considered to have accumulated a lot of energy, allowing him to directly break through to the level of 7 Monarch Spirit. Although his realm was much lower than Bai Yangchao's, his true strength would only be known after a fight. You're courting death. Bai Yangchao's temperament was also as violent as fire. When he heard Xiao Yan's scolding, he immediately let out a cold shout. His body moved and rushed over like a lightning bolt. His movement technique was definitely the fastest amongst all the emperors that Xiao Yan had seen so far. Startling killing palm. Bai Yangchao's body rushed forward. He waved his right hand and a majestic origin monarch chi whistled out from within his body. It caused the space to crack and gather on his palm. It turned into a several feet long hand blade. It seemed to have cut through the air as it roared and attacked Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan was also slightly shocked in his heart. This fellow was indeed worthy of being one of the top 10 experts in the Soaring Dragon ranking. Just the attack of a 2 Dao Emperor was not any weaker than the attack of a 5 Dao Emperor. Facing Bai Yongchao's aggressive attack, Xiao Yan didn't dodge at all. This time, he would let these guys have a good look at how ridiculous their imagination was. Hong! Under everyone's gaze, Xiao Yan stood straight. The moment before Bai Yongchao's palm struck out, Xiao Yan suddenly threw out a punch. He didn't use any monarch skill or Wu Cheng's punch. The powerful force caused the space to explode. After that, Xiao Yan's fist collided with Bai Yongchao's huge palm. Buzz! The surging origin monarch chi exploded, instantly wrapping around Xiao Yan and Bai Yongchao. Rocks flew everywhere on the ground, and a shocking chi spread out, causing some of the students' faces to turn pale. An attack of this level was simply too powerful. How is it? Big brother Bai, did you win? The few young men who came with Bai Yongchao looked at the empty space that was covered by smoke. They had a surprised look on their faces. In their imagination, a saint-rank trial participant that was not even an emperor would be sent flying by Bai Yongchao's punch. No. In the distance, Mu Yiyu's eyes were filled with a purple glow. Through the fog, she could clearly see what had happened. Immediately, she smiled and did not say anything. Before the smoke had dispersed, an intense battle had suddenly erupted from within. The shocking sound of the battle caused everyone to be stunned. Boom! Another explosion was heard. Xiao Yan and Bai Yongchao flew out from the smoke at the same time. Crack! Xiao Yan gently stepped on a huge rock and stopped steadily. Bai Yongchao stumbled backwards. It was a long time before he finally managed to stop his body. Xiao Yan glanced at the sleeve that was torn apart by Bai Yongchao and smiled indifferently. The latter's clothes were similarly torn apart by him. During this exchange, Xiao Yan had also seen Bai Yongchao's strength. His speed was extremely fast and his strength was also extremely powerful. This kind of person was indeed worthy of being a genius student on the Soaring Dragon ranking. Draw? Some of the young men following Bai Yongchao saw that the two of them had separated in the blink of an eye and were not injured at all. Everyone was immediately stunned. An 8 monarch spirit fellow actually dared to face Bai Yongchao head-on? Unlike the surprised looks of the ordinary students, Lu Xiangyang had an unfriendly expression from the beginning to the end. He stared at Xiao Yan's every move, and his eyes sparkled with a bright light. He did not say a word. Yi Yi, who was in the crowd, had a cold expression on his face. When he saw Bai Yongchao's appearance, a rare smile appeared on his cold face. This guy is serious. Bai Yongchao faintly looked at Xiao Yan's torn shirt. He smiled coldly and ripped off his shirt, revealing his strong body. Interesting. In that case, let's have a good fight. After saying that, Bai Yongchao let out a low roar. The imposing aura in his body suddenly turned and gathered behind him. In a trance, Xiao Yan seemed to see a snake-shaped spear piercing through the blue sky. Its power was unparalleled. In the next moment, the spear came whistling over and struck directly at Xiao Yan's chest. You used this move as soon as you came. Bai Yongchao, I didn't expect you to be so anxious. Mu Yiyue, who was far away, pursed her lips and laughed when she saw this. A purple light flashed in her eyes as she looked at Xiao Yan curiously. The moment the snake-shaped spear appeared, Xiao Yan suddenly felt a chill on his back. It was as if he was being stared at by a poisonous snake. He did not hesitate at all. With a light shout, the Xiao Yans on Xiao Yan's back crazily gathered. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge white tiger that looked down on all living beings. The white tiger faced the sky and let out a long roar. The powerful qi that it emitted shocked Xuan and Kai Lin, who were standing behind Xiao Yan. Especially Kai Lin, the moment the white tiger appeared. It was as if something in her body had been touched. White tiger spirit sealing flash. Xiao Yan shouted in anger. The white tiger behind him also roared and rushed towards Bai Yongchao's snake-shaped spear at an extremely fast speed. Roar! The white tiger roared angrily and blocked the snake-shaped spear with its palm. It made it unable to move at all, but Bai Yongchao's expression did not change. He moved his body and dodged the attack of the white tiger in an instant. The moment he dodged, Bai Yongqiao shouted softly. The surging Origin Monarch Chi came out from his palm and poured into the snake-shaped spear. In an instant, the spear shone brightly. As if it had obtained an infinite amount of energy, it instantly pierced through the huge palm of the white tiger. It shot explosively towards Xiao Yan, who was within it. Xiao Yan's expression was cold. Bai Yongqiao's attack. It was countless times stronger than the attack of an ordinary Tu Dao emperor. However, compared to Li Yin from the Kangri group, it was still not enough. While thinking in his heart, Xiao Yan's hand seal suddenly changed. A trace of spiritual light flashed across the originally empty eyes of the white tiger. In its huge body, the Origin Monarch Chi crazily rushed over, corroding the snake-shaped spear. White tiger sky-shattering strike. Xiao Yan lightly spat out a few words. In an instant, the furious roar of the white tiger filled the entire sky, causing the expressions of the surrounding onlookers to change drastically. How could such a powerful attack be made by a monarch spirit? A purple light flickered in her eyes. Mu Yiyue smiled and took a deep look at Xiao Yan. After that, her figure slowly faded away. Her eyes couldn't be wrong. This guy really had some ability. The inner courtyard competition was really looking forward to it a month later. 2. Rumble. In this world, the Origin Monarch Chis crazily surged. They rubbed against the space, causing it to continuously explode. A roar that caused one's scalp to go numb burst forth. Hundreds of inner court students gathered together, staring with their mouths agape at the scene in front of them. Under the feet of the heavenly peak, a huge white tiger that could be seen with the naked eye was crazily neighing. Within its body, a snake-shaped spear that was several feet long rushed into it with an unstoppable momentum. It was aimed directly at Xiao Yan, who was inside the white tiger's body. Halfway through, the Origin Monarch Chi within the white tiger's body filled the air and tightly wrapped around the snake-shaped spear. It corroded the power of the spear. Bai Yongqiao's expression was solemn. There was also a trace of shock in his deep eye sockets. Xiao Yan's strength was merely at the 8 monarch spirit, but he actually possessed the strength to fight against him. Let's try this. Bai Yongqiao coldly snorted. His strength was naturally not limited to this level since he was able to become one of the top 10 experts in the Inner Academy's Soaring Dragon ranking. Although he had exhausted a lot of the Origin Monarch Chi in his body when he fought a low-tier heavenly beast in the desert, he still had a great confidence in defeating Xiao Yan, who was merely at the 8 monarch spirit. Xiao Yan, admit defeat. If you are unable to withstand my next attack, but you will die. It is not easy for the Academy to produce a saint-rank trial participant. You are still too weak right now. Bai Yongqiao took a deep breath and stared at Xiao Yan. He said with a cold expression. Although Xiao Yan easily blocked the snake-shaped spear, it was too difficult for Xiao Yan to defend against the next attack. Hearing Bai Yongqiao's words, Lu Xiaoyang's eyes sparkled. Then, as if he had thought of something, he looked at Xiao Yan with a smile that was not a smile, although it was his first time seeing Xiao Yan. However, Lu Xiaoyang could tell that this saint-rank trial participant called Xiao Yan wouldn't surrender so obediently. Then I would like to give it a try. Xiao Yan did not hesitate when he heard this. He smiled faintly and then shouted. The Origin Monarch Chi around his body was crazily coiling around his body. He forcefully shot out the snake-shaped spear. If one looked closely, there were some undetectable cracks on the spear's body. Bai Yongqiao didn't hesitate when he heard that. He suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the snake-shaped spear. He firmly fixed the snake-shaped spear in the air. 6 shattering heaven's spear. Bai Yongqiao coldly cried out. Both of his hands instantly turned crystal clear and white. Quite a number of people with keen senses among the crowd could sense an invisible force surging out from Bai Yongqiao's palms and pouring into the snake-shaped spear in the air. Swoosh! In the next moment, the snake-shaped spear, which had stopped in midair, suddenly shook. The Origin Monarch Chi on the spear circulated. In the blink of an eye, 5 identical spears were formed. 6 snake-shaped long spears. The spears were all flickering with a sharp luster. As the luster flickered, space itself began to buzz. The powerful force caused the expressions of many sharp-eyed students to change drastically. The 6 sky-splitting spear, which is comparable to a low-level monarch arts, is one of Bai Yongqiao's ultimate skills. When he used this technique back then, he killed a low-level heavenly beast. He actually used this technique to deal with Xiao Yan. Is this guy crazy? If something were to happen to the saint-rank trial participant, wouldn't the elders skin him alive? Unlike the other students' exclamations, Lu Xiangyang and Yi Yi remained silent. They could naturally sense it. The power of Bai Yangchao's attack was only half of its power when it was at its peak. Even if it hit Xiao Yan, it probably wouldn't cause any fatal damage. This guy is confident in defeating the Saint-rank trial participant with less than half of his strength. Lu Xianyang narrowed his eyes and stared at Bai Yangchao, who was standing not far away with a solemn expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Xiao Yan raised his head and looked. The sunlight passed through the layers of clouds and reflected on the long spear. It was shining with a soul-stirring luster. Under careful observation, he could feel a slight chill from the 6 long spears. It is indeed powerful. Xiao Yan was expressionless. He stretched out his hand from the white tiger and suddenly took a step forward. The qi of his entire body was condensed, giving everyone the feeling that he had turned the sharp qi of a sword into a heavy qi of defense. Facing Bai Yangchao's attack, Xiao Yan didn't use the monarch flame. He didn't take out the blue flame ruler either. These 2 trump cards. It wasn't time to expose them yet. Furthermore, Xiao Yan had a vague feeling that Bai Yangchao's strength. It wasn't just the current situation. He had also felt the monarch skill, which was comparable to a low-grade monarch arts. However, the power contained in Bai Yangchao's attack was far inferior. Swoosh! Bai Yangchao's face was expressionless. He suddenly pushed both of his hands forward. In an instant, the origin monarch qi in this space seemed to have been disturbed. The 6 snake-shaped spears seemed to have transformed into 6 huge pythons. As their snake bodies swayed, they had already rushed over like lightning. A threatening aura surged over in all directions, causing the air around Xiao Yan to freeze. Xiao Yan's feet stepped on the ground. His body was like a huge rock that had stood tall for countless years. Under the pressure of this qi, he remained motionless. This level of qi had no effect on Xiao Yan at all. Buzz! 6 long spears buzzed and rushed over from all directions. The tip of the spears was shining with a dazzling light. Xiao Yan stood still, and he even felt a slight pain on his skin. Boom! Xiao Yan suddenly moved. He threw out both of his fists. With the sky spill fist in his left hand and the heaven's top fist in his right hand, the raging origin monarch qi was like a sharp sword. It carried a frightening momentum as it forcefully struck towards the 6 long spears. As one of the 4 quarters of the fist that could rival the holy arts, although the sky spill fist and the heaven's top fist were only at the beginner level of the monarch spell, their power was not to be underestimated. Under Xiao Yan's control, the power of the sky spill fist and the heaven's top fist had far exceeded that of the beginner level of the monarch spell. Boom! 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 Both of his fists were thrown out 3 times in a row. After 6 punches, Xiao Yan's chest suddenly felt stuffy, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the hard ground. When he took the 6th step, Xiao Yan finally stopped. Both of his fists were covered with blood. The space between his thumb and index finger was cracked, and he was trembling slightly. Xiao Yan raised his head and looked over. The corner of his mouth slowly curled up. The pain on both of his fists caused him to feel a little pain. At this moment, it was nothing. Sure enough, just by relying on his physical strength, he was able to crack Bai Yangchao's attack. In the air, the 6 snake-shaped spears did not move forward no matter how Bai Yangchao urged them. Some of the sharp-eyed students looked over and were shocked to discover that densely packed cracks had actually appeared on the 6 spears. Crack! Following a soft sound, the 6 snake-shaped spears instantly shattered and turned into origin monarch qis that scattered in the air. It's shattered. Just relying on the strength of my physical body. It is indeed worthy of being called a saint-rank trial participant. The strength of the surrounding people was quite extraordinary. The trace of contempt that was born from Xiao Yan's retreat had vanished at this moment. To be able to shatter Bai Yangchao's ultimate move with his physical strength, this kind of strength was enough to bear the name of the saint-rank trial participant. Behind Xiao Yan, Xuan and Kai Lin's hearts were also filled with excitement. They could naturally sense how powerful Bai Yangchao's attack was just now. Xiao Yan shattering it also caused the anxious hearts of the 2 girls to calm down. Although Bai Yangchao had used up more than half of his origin monarch qi, this attack will definitely cause serious injuries to even a true emperor. This Xiao Yan actually managed to block it. However, if this is true strength, then it is really too weak. Lu Xiangyang crossed his arms and stood there without saying a word. A trace of excitement suddenly emerged in his eyes. With the current strength that Xiao Yan had displayed, he wanted to defeat him. However, it was fine here. After all, the competition would only attract the attention of the entire inner courtyard a month later. Even the experts of Realm and Valley would appear. Defeating the Saint-ranked trial participant in such an occasion, that sense of accomplishment. That was the deepest part. The moment the 6 spears were shattered, Bai Yangchao's expression darkened slightly. His body couldn't help but sway. Clearly, he had suffered some serious injuries. They are actually evenly matched. Some of the onlookers naturally didn't have Lu Xiangyang's experience. When they saw that Xiao Yan and Bai Yangchao had suffered different degrees of injuries, exclamations of surprise immediately erupted. The Saint-ranked trial participant was actually so powerful. It had just entered the academy, and it was already able to fight head-on with the experts from the famous soaring dragon ranking for a long time without being defeated. You are indeed very strong. After recovering, Bai Yangchao raised his head and looked at Xiao Yan. His deeply sunken eye sockets shone with a strange light. Although he had used up a large amount of Origin Monarch Cheese, the fact that Xiao Yan was able to withstand his attack was enough to show the latter's strength. Your strength has yet to be fully unleashed. Xiao Yan loosened his fists and allowed the blood to flow out freely. He stared at Bai Yangchao and said in a deep voice. Bai Yangchao pursed his lips and did not say anything. He looked at Kai Lin and Xuan behind Xiao Yan with a complicated look. He let out a long breath and looked at Xiao Yan like a knife. He said coldly, when the day of the inner courtyard competition comes, I will naturally display my true strength. At that time, I will know who is stronger and who is weaker. After saying that, Bai Yangchao turned around and left without any hesitation. Not far behind him, a few of his subordinates who followed him saw this. They also hurriedly followed him and left in a hurry. Seeing Bai Yangchao leave, Xiao Yan became even more certain of the guesses in his heart. It was likely that the former had also sensed it. With his current strength, he would most likely lose if he fought with him. 1 month later. All right. Xiao Yan's lips curled up when he thought of this. Being in such a majestic place like the Origin Monarch Qi, the hot blood in his body could not help but boil. He even began to look forward to the competition in a month's time. Turning his gaze, Xiao Yan looked at Lu Xiangyang, who was standing in front of the crowd. Immediately, he said in a clear voice, Senior Lu specially came here because he wants to fight Xiao Yan. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the people who were still shocked by Bai Yangchao's sudden departure immediately turned their eyes to Lu Xiangyang. The latter had a calm expression, but the scar on his face was indescribably ferocious. Lu Xiangyang's facial expression didn't change at all after being stared at by everyone. He only smiled and said, Junior Xiao, you are worrying too much. As the leader of Punishment Department, I am protecting the safety of the academy. Naturally, I can't act so casually because of personal matters. After a pause, the corners of Lu Xiangyang's mouth suddenly curved into a sinister smile as he slowly said, The academy's competition in a month's time will attract a lot of attention. At that time, Junior will have to perform well. If you die there, no one will take revenge for you. As he spoke, Lu Xiangyang looked at Xuan and Kai Lin, smiled lightly at the two girls, and then left emotionally. Xiao Yan did not speak when he heard this. His eyes narrowed slightly, and his gaze flickered slightly. Even he was unable to see through Lu Xiangyang's strength. It was likely that he had reached a frightening level. Adding the former's identity, it was likely that there were very few people in the inner academy who were qualified to fight with him. Even Bai Yangchao would still be reprimanded by him. The surrounding crowd also scattered in 2s and 3s after seeing Lu Xiangyang leave. They continued to discuss the fight today. Although it was only a few rounds, the intensity of the fight was not inferior to the fight between the experts on the soaring dragon ranking. Bai Yangchao's departure also caused the crowd to have a few more conversations after tea. Xiao Yan, who was ready for the battle, had no choice but to stop. He watched Lu Xiangyang leave with his eyes. For some reason, his heart felt a little heavy. He might have underestimated these experts on the soaring dragon ranking. He wanted to display the prestige of the Saint-ranked trial participant in the competition 1 month later. He was afraid that his current strength wasn't enough. I can fight Bai Yangchao to a draw. With this kind of strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to come from the forest domain. At the peak of the mountain far away, A few elders were looking at this place through the layers of clouds. They were the inner court elders led by Elder Xiao. Elder Tian is right. Without a trump card, it is absolutely impossible to come here from the forest domain. However, Xiao Yan should be able to tell that Bai Yangchao has yet to fully display his strength. Elder Xiao nodded slightly when he heard this. His eyes were filled with wisdom and cunning. I'm quite curious. That bead was clearly broken, so why would Xiao Yan come here? What did he do? A tall and straight middle-aged man said with a solemn expression. The middle-aged man was dressed in a green robe, carrying a bit of scholarly aura, looking more like a weak scholar. Elder Su, the great elder, has said that you are not allowed to inquire about Xiao Yan's experiences. If you push him too hard, it might backfire. This saint-rank trial participant is too important to our academy. Elder Xiao frowned and looked at the middle-aged man in green robe. The latter was of the same grade as him, and they were both second-grade elders. If there was a conflict between them and Xiao Yan, then who should they side with? This would give the academy a headache. Elder Su's face was expressionless. He nodded and said, Elder Xiao, don't worry. I naturally know what to do. However, to be honest, the academy also values this matter very much. Elder Su cast a glance at Elder Xiao with an indifferent gaze. He suddenly smiled and said, I heard from Elder Zhu from the Elixir Association that Xiao Yan's soul has already reached the alien realm. I should be able to imagine that the rupture of the pearl is closely related to the changes in his soul power. After saying that, Elder Su smiled. His body moved, and he soared into the sky, leaving this place. Elder Xiao looked in the direction where Elder Su had left and helplessly sighed. Elder Su was the youngest and most talented second-grade elder. He had received the favor of the great elder and the headmaster. Moreover, his character was quite strange. It was unknown what he would do. Mr. Xiao Yan, that Bai Yangchao. Xuan feels that he has yet to display his true strength. In the heavenly peak, Xiao Yan and the other two were sitting on the stone bench in front of the courtyard. Xuan looked at Xiao Yan with a serious expression. In the previous battle, although Bai Yangchao was aggressive and overbearing, she felt that his true strength was far more than what he had shown today. Kai Lin also looked at Xiao Yan when she heard this. Clearly, she had also sensed it. Xiao Yan mused for a moment before nodding his head. He naturally felt the deepest feeling when he fought with Bai Yangchao. Although the final, sky-splitting spear was powerful, the origin monarch chi contained within it was not as powerful as an emperor-level expert, much less an expert ranked on the soaring dragon ranking. Xuan Kai Lin, I think I need to enter the spirit origin formation and cultivate properly these few days. I have a feeling that if I don't improve during this period of time, I will be under a lot of pressure when I reach the inner courtyard competition. Xiao Yan pondered for a moment and said slowly with a solemn expression. Today, Bai Yangchao was only ranked 5th on the soaring dragon ranking. If he attacked with all his strength, if he wanted to win, the blue flame ruler and the monarch flame would be his biggest trump cards. He would need to use at least one of his trump cards. As for Lu Xiangyang, it gave him an even stronger feeling, as well as the first place in the soaring dragon ranking. Second place. None of them were easy to deal with. Xuan and Kai Lin looked at each other. They nodded silently. They naturally understood Xiao Yan's thoughts. As wives, there was no reason to stop him. Mr. Xiao Yan, the person ranked first in the soaring dragon ranking is a girl, and she's also a great beauty. Xuan suddenly smiled and revealed her beautiful face. She is Mu Yuyang's younger sister, Mu Yiyue. She is very strong. Mr. Xiao Yan, when the time comes, do not lose to her. After hearing Xuan words, Xiao Yan was slightly stunned. Then, he smiled bitterly. Mu Yuyang was the first in realm in Valley. Her sister was the number 1 soaring dragon ranking. The strength of these two siblings was really terrifying. I heard that Mu Yiyue has the strength to become a student of realm in Valley. She is just waiting for the competition next year. Mr. Xiao Yan, you have met a worthy opponent. Xuan giggled. Kai Lin, who was beside, saw Xiao Yan's shocked expression and could not help but laugh. Her cold and elegant expression suddenly had an extraordinary beauty. Mu Yiyue, Mu Yuyang, Xiao Yan whispered softly and then laughed bitterly. Now it seemed that the burden on his body was really a lot heavier.